Just a few years ago, scenes like this were unthinkable. We're on the road for 5 days inside the most dangerous slum in Europe. The people living here have a single objective: to push on to Germany or France. We're documenting this European reality. Welcome to the other side of Europe. Who are these migrants fleeing poverty, flooding into Berlin, Paris, and London in massive numbers? And where do they come from? The trail leads us to Eastern Europe, to the so-called poverty districts at the gates of the Bulgarian capital, Sofia. The drive alone shows we are leaving orderly civilization. Asphalt gives way to mud tracks. Horse-drawn carriages and donkeys dominate the street scene here. Those not lucky enough to afford such a vehicle must resort to other means. It feels like time travel back to the Middle Ages. The smell becomes more intense with every meter. A biting stench of burnt plastic and decay hangs in the air. Trash lines the roadsides. Here, simply everything is thrown away. Trash cans overflow. Even defective cars are simply parked and left to rot for years in public view. Since the roads are becoming completely impassable, we decide to cover the path to the heart of the slum on foot. Over 250,000 people live here under catastrophic conditions. A culture of Roma among themselves. Filming is considered extremely dangerous. Police or law enforcement avoid this place. The power supply, if it exists at all, was installed primitively. Everywhere you see a tangle of cables. Street lamps or power boxes have been illegally tapped. There is acute danger to life here. The puddles, despite sunny weather, show there is no sewage system here either. Wastewater is simply channeled from the barracks onto the street. A slurry of food scraps, mud, and feces forms. A group of the people living here discovers our camera and complains, "Look at this. This is truly a total disaster." A young man tells us,
"Most people here want to leave, preferably to Germany or France. Look at the luxury cars. Those are all families who get money from relatives abroad."
We meet one of the residents who wants to show us the living conditions in more detail. The slum is a labyrinth of branching, narrow alleys. Here too, there is a strict hierarchy. First, he wants to show us the wealthier barracks. After that, we will see the living place of the poorest of the poor, the slums dump. Most of these simple huts are built with plain bricks. Yet even here, we are left stunned. We meet a woman and her child. The room, if you can call it that, is sparsely furnished. A light bulb provides light. The running TV is the only luxury. The apartment is stuffy and smells of burnt varnish. This typical smell is also present in another hut. In the corner of the room, we discover a primitive stove fed with combustible items found at the nearby dump. An improvised chimney is supposed to guide the toxic fumes outside, yet carbon monoxide poisonings are no exception here. We are led further and reach the leader of this part of the slum. Proudly, he lets us take a look inside his home. What we see here is considered absolute luxury. TV, refrigerator, and halfway decent furniture. After this tour of individual living conditions, we make our way to the poorest part of the slum. Again and again, we notice the numerous children growing up in these conditions. They live in an extremely neglected and primitive area. Discarded objects like knives or toxic substances pose a great danger. We also repeatedly notice women with strikingly bleached blonde hair. Not infrequently, they are recruited by unscrupulous profiteers in Germany and France for poverty prostitution. On our way, the biting smell becomes increasingly unbearable. It is hard to get enough air. The barracks, too, can hardly be described as such anymore. We reach the estimated 20,000 people who have erected their makeshift huts here on the garbage dump. At first glance, we see numerous stray animals. They feed on discarded food. At second glance, we see numerous people poking around the dump like ants. A shocking image, one that is usually only known from slums in third world countries. The people living here use the dump as a livelihood and employer at the same time. They source everything usable from here: clothing, utensils, and much more. We are told that all of Europe's electronic waste is transported to this place. Sometimes it is simply deposited here for years. No one cares about it. Toxic battery materials or heavy metals seep into the ground. The slum dwellers search for individual parts that are collected and sold. Some of the workers demonstrate the process of this simple activity. It is about metals in the electronic devices that have to be extracted with a hammer. Child labor is common practice here. Again and again, we observe how children are integrated into the work. Even for hard physical labor, like transporting the scrap to the next dealer, they are used. Contrary to the sugar-coated reports of European authorities, we have to learn that these conditions here are increasing more and more. The slum is growing, and with it, the number of its inhabitants. Just a few meters further, a new field has already been opened up. Here, the residents of tomorrow will build their trash huts. With this resigning realization, we leave the place. If you want to support us in this educational work, leave a subscription and give a thumbs up. See you soon from another city in Europe.